I-32F, never imagined I'd be sharing this story, but I need an outside perspective on my family's increasingly outrageous behavior. This all starts with a seemingly simple dream, my childhood ambition to create something meaningful in the tech world. Growing up in what appeared to be a typical middle-class family, the dynamics between me and my sister Hannah, 29F, were anything but typical. While I buried myself in coding books and computer parts, Hannah was the social butterfly who could do no wrong. "Charlotte, why can't you be more like your sister? At least she knows how to have fun," became my mother's constant refrain. Let me paint you a picture of my teenage years. One particularly memorable night, I was debugging my first serious programming project, a basic inventory management system for my dad's friend's small business. It was 2 a.m., and I was fighting with a particularly nasty bug. Hannah waltzed in from a party she wasn't supposed to be at, clearly having had a few drinks. Instead of getting grounded, she got a gentle "Oh sweetie, at least you made it home safe." Meanwhile, I got lectured the next morning about wasting time on the computer instead of getting proper sleep. The real turning point came during my senior year of high school. I had maintained a perfect 4.0 GPA, created the school's first coding club, and even won the state programming championship. My dream was Princeton's computer science program. I could recite their course catalog from memory. But when acceptance letter came, along with a partial scholarship, my parents dropped the bomb. "We need to be realistic, Charlotte," my father said during dinner. "We have to think about Hannah's future too. She might need extra support for college." The unspoken truth hung in the air. They had used most of the college fund for Hannah's potential needs, despite her being 3 years younger and showing zero interest in higher education. I ended up at State University, working 3 part-time jobs, morning shifts at a coffee shop, evening tech support at the university's IT help desk, and weekend freelance coding gigs. Hannah. She took a gap year that turned into 3, funded by our parents because she was finding herself. The real irony kicked in during my junior year. While juggling jobs and classes, I noticed something fascinating about task management. Everyone around me, students, professors, working professionals, all struggled with organizing their daily routines. That's when Taskmaster was born, though it wasn't even called that yet. Just a simple idea scribbled in my coding notebook: what if your to-do list actually understood how you work? I spent countless nights in the computer lab, fueled by energy drinks and instant ramen. My roommate thought I was crazy, especially when I turned down a summer internship at Google to work on my app. "You're giving up Google for a maybe? Are you insane?" she asked. Maybe I was, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was onto something big. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source: my terrible time management skills. One night, after missing a family dinner because I lost track of time coding, cue another lecture about proper priorities, I added a feature to my app that tracked not just what you needed to do, but how you actually spent your time. It would learn from your patterns and adapt. Miss 3 morning meetings? The app would start scheduling important tasks for afternoon slots instead. After graduation, while my classmates were accepting cushy tech jobs, I was living on my friend's couch, perfecting my pitch. I must have presented to at least 50 different investors and companies. Most ignored me. Some laughed. One particularly memorable VC patted me on the head, yes, literally, and said, "Cute idea, sweetheart, but task management is a solved problem." Then came the day that changed everything. I had just been rejected by my 47th potential investor when I got an email from Tech Giant's innovation department. They wanted to see a demo. I arrived at their headquarters in my only professional outfit, bought from a thrift store, carrying a laptop held together with duct tape. The meeting was scheduled for 30 minutes. We talked for 3 hours. By the end, their CEO was playing with the prototype like a kid with a new toy. "This is different," he said, "this actually learns." 2 weeks of intense negotiations later, I walked away with a $5 million acquisition deal and a contract to continue developing the app under their umbrella. When I called my parents to share the news, their first response was, "That's nice, dear, but did you hear Hannah got promoted to junior marketing associate?" Classic. But things changed dramatically when the local paper ran a story about the acquisition. Suddenly, I wasn't just Charlotte the computer nerd, I was Charlotte the millionaire. The shift in my family's attitude was both amusing and disturbing. Mom started casually mentioning her friends' children who were struggling with student loans. Dad began sharing links to luxury cars he'd love to test drive someday. But Hannah took entitlement to an Olympic level. It started small. Designer handbags for her birthday turned into requests for small loans that were never repaid. When she met Tom, 31M, suddenly I was expected to fund their dates because he should see that she comes from a good family. The wedding was where things really went off the rails. I offered $20,000 as a wedding gift, a sum that made my accountant wince. Hannah's response? "Oh, is that all? I mean, we were thinking of having it at the Crystal Palace Hotel, and there's this amazing resort in the Maldives for the honeymoon." One guilt trip later, I was funding both the upgraded wedding venue and their 2-week honeymoon. You'd think that would be enough, right? Wrong. Last week, I got an emergency text from Mom demanding I come over immediately. I walked into what can only be described as an ambush. Mom, Dad, Hannah, and Tom were sitting around the dining table, looking like they were staging an intervention. Papers were scattered everywhere, house listings, I realized later. Hannah cleared her throat and delivered her speech. "Charlotte, we've been talking. You're clearly not using all your money. I mean, you live in that modest apartment and drive a regular car. Tom and I have decided it's time for us to have our own home, and since you're so successful, you should buy it for us." I stared at them, convinced this was some kind of twisted joke. But no one was laughing. "Let me get this straight," I said slowly. "You want me to buy you a house? Just give you a house?" "Well, duh." Hannah rolled her eyes. "You have millions. And we found the perfect place, only $850,000. It has a pool and everything." She slid a listing across the table like she was showing me a menu at a restaurant. When I suggested helping with a down payment instead, through a proper, legal loan agreement, you'd think I'd suggested they live in a cardboard box. Hannah burst into tears, her go-to move since childhood, while Mom gasped like I just announced I was becoming a professional axe murderer. "A loan? To your own sister?" Mom's voice hit that special pitch that could probably shatter glass. "After everything we've done for you? We raised you to respect family." Dad jumped in with his own guilt artillery. "You know, Charlotte, when you were little and needed braces, we didn't hesitate. We didn't ask you for a loan agreement then, did we?" I couldn't help but laugh. "Are you seriously comparing basic dental care for your child to buying your adult daughter a house with a pool?" That's when Hannah played her trump card, the one she's been perfecting since she was 5. Her voice went quiet, trembling just slightly. "I get it now. You're jealous because I found love and you're alone. You prefer money over family because money can't leave you like all your ex-boyfriends did." The room went silent. Even Tom looked uncomfortable, suddenly very interested in his shoes. I felt something snap inside me, not in anger, but in clarity. Every manipulation, every guilt trip, every family obligation of the past years crystallized into perfect focus. "Okay, let's talk about family," I said, my voice steady. "Let's talk about how I worked 3 jobs in college while Hannah got a fully funded finding herself period. How about when I needed emergency appendix surgery during my startup days, and you told me to figure it out because you were saving for Hannah's future? Or how you've never once asked about my company except to know how much money I'm making?" Mom tried to interrupt, but I wasn't finished. "I've given Hannah $20,000 for her wedding, paid for a luxury honeymoon, bought her designer clothes, covered her car repairs, and funded her emergency shopping sprees. And now you want me to buy her an $850,000 house because, what? Because she exists? Because she's married? Because she wants a pool?" Hannah stood up, smoothing her designer dress. "Yes, another gift from me. Here's how this is going to work," she announced, like she was declaring a royal decree. "Either you buy us the house, and we mean buy, not some insulting loan offer, or you're no longer part of this family." Mom and Dad agree with me. Right? My parents nodded solemnly, as if they weren't participating in the most absurd extortion attempt I'd ever witnessed. Tom just kept staring at his shoes, probably wondering how he'd ended up in this particular episode of My Wife's Family is Insane. I looked around the room, at my mother's expectant face, my father's stern disapproval, my sister's smug certainty, and Tom's studied shoe inspection. 20 years of memories flashed through my mind, the missed opportunities, the double standards, the constant pressure to give more, be more, pay more. Without a word, I picked up my purse and walked to the door. Charlotte Elizabeth. Mom's voice cracked like a whip. If you walk out that door, don't ever think about coming back. I paused, hand on the doorknob. You know what's funny? I said, not turning around. You're right. I won't come back. Because this? I gestured at the room, the house listings, their faces. This isn't family. This is a hostage situation with matching DNA. I walked out, their shouts following me down the driveway. My phone started buzzing before I reached my car, texts, calls, voicemails, all variations on the theme of my selfishness and ingratitude. Now I sit here, typing this out, wondering if I've just made the biggest mistake of my life or finally made the best decision for myself. The rational part of me knows I'm right, but there's still that little voice, the one programmed by years of guilt and manipulation, wondering if I should have just bought the house to keep the peace. So, Reddit, am I really the villain in this story? Should I have just bought them the house? Because right now, I feel both relieved and terrible, and I could use some perspective from people who aren't trying to access my bank account through emotional blackmail. Update 1. First, thank you all for your overwhelming support on my previous post. The situation has escalated in ways I never imagined possible. Last weekend was my Aunt Linda's 60th birthday party. I almost didn't go, but she's always been kind to me, so I decided to attend. Big mistake, or maybe a blessing in disguise. I arrived at the upscale restaurant Linda had chosen for her celebration, where about 30 family members were already gathered. As soon as I walked in, the temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. My parents and Hannah were seated at the far end of the long table, and I strategically chose a seat near my cousin Jessica, who has always been level-headed. Everything was tense but civil through the appetizers. Then came the wine, lots of wine. My mother, who normally nurses one glass through an entire evening, was on her fourth by the time people started giving toasts to Linda. After several heartwarming tributes from Linda's friends, my mother suddenly stood up, wine glass wobbling dangerously. I'd like to say something, she announced, her cheeks flushed. About ungrateful children who forget where they came from. Jessica whispered. Oh no. She wouldn't. But she would. My daughter Charlotte, Mom continued, her voice bitter, sits there in her expensive clothes with her millions in the bank, while her own sister needs a house. She refuses to help family. She took another swig of wine. She's become a selfish, greedy person who. That's enough, Helen. Aunt Linda stood up, her face stormy. This is not the time or place. But Hannah, apparently feeling emboldened by Mom's performance, jumped in. She made me get a lawyer's contract just to consider helping with a down payment. Her own sister. What happened next was unexpected. My cousin Mike spoke up, you mean like the down payment she offered after giving you a $20,000 wedding gift and a Maldives honeymoon? Then Aunt Sarah chimed in, Charlotte helped pay for my emergency dental surgery last year when I lost my insurance. And she covered Tommy's diabetes treatment, Linda added. As more relatives started sharing stories of times I'd helped them, Mom's face grew increasingly red. Hannah shrieked, so she helps everyone except her own sister? The final straw came when my mother pulled out her phone and opened Facebook. Well, everyone should know what kind of daughter she really is, she slurred, typing furiously. Linda tried to grab the phone, but it was too late. The post went live, with heavy hearts, John and I are officially disowning our eldest daughter Charlotte. Her selfishness and ingratitude have shown us that she cares more about money than family. From this day forward, we have only one daughter, our beloved Hannah. The restaurant fell silent. Even Hannah looked shocked, apparently, this wasn't part of the plan. Tom, who had been quiet throughout the entire scene, finally spoke, this is getting out of hand. I stood up calmly, walked over to Linda, and hugged her tightly. I'm so sorry about this, I whispered. Happy birthday. Then I left, ignoring my mother's shouts and Hannah's tears. Later that evening, Jessica called to tell me that after I left, several family members followed suit, leaving my mother, father, and Hannah sitting at a nearly empty table. The party was effectively over before they even served the main course. Your mom's Facebook post backfired spectacularly, Jessica added. The comments are overwhelmingly supportive of you. Even Tom's family is criticizing them. I've since blocked my parents, Hannah, and Tom on all platforms, phone, social media, email, everything. It feels like cauterizing a wound, painful but necessary. The most surprising aftermath has been the family division. Apparently, my parents and Hannah have been uninvited from several upcoming family gatherings. As Linda told me yesterday, no one wants to spend Thanksgiving watching them try to extort you. I know cutting off family is extreme, but their behavior at the birthday party proved I made the right choice. My only regret is ruining Linda's celebration, but she assures me it wasn't my fault. Jessica suggested I use some of my millions to treat Linda to a private birthday dinner to make up for the chaos. I've already made reservations at her favorite restaurant for next week. At least some family relationships are worth preserving. This whole situation has taught me that sometimes the family you're born into isn't the family you end up with. And sometimes, a public meltdown is exactly what you need to see who really has your back. Update 2, after 2 months of blessed silence, my phone lit up with an unknown number. Something in my gut told me who it was, and I was right. Charlotte, please don't hang up, my mother's voice was thick with tears. Everything's falling apart. We're going to lose the house. She launched into a devastating story. They had used their house as collateral for Hannah's wedding loans, Dad had supposedly lost his job, and they were barely making ends meet. Please, Charlotte. You're our only hope. I'm your only hope? I repeated, remembering their Facebook post about having only one daughter. That's interesting, considering I'm not your daughter anymore. You forced our hand, she snapped. If you had just helped your sister. I was about to hang up when I received a text from Aunt Linda that changed everything. Don't believe their crisis. Call me ASAP. Over coffee the next day, Linda revealed the truth. Your father hasn't lost his job. He voluntarily switched to part-time because he wanted a better work-life balance. They even bought a new patio set last week. And the house. I asked. There's no bank threatening foreclosure. They made it up to guilt you into helping Hannah buy that house she wants. Your cousin Mike works at their bank, they haven't missed a single payment. The manipulation was so transparent it was almost comical. But Linda wasn't finished. There's more. Hannah and Tom had a huge fight last week at Uncle Steve's barbecue. Apparently, Tom's parents offered to help them with a down payment for a modest starter home, but Hannah refused because it wasn't in the right neighborhood. She showed me pictures from the barbecue, my parents' house looking perfectly maintained, with new landscaping and that expensive patio furniture. In one photo, Hannah was sporting a new designer handbag while complaining about their financial struggles. The next day, I received an email from Tom. It was surprisingly honest. I never wanted to be part of this house demand. My parents raised me to earn things for myself. Hannah and I have been fighting about it constantly. She doesn't understand why I won't support her plan to pressure you. He went on to explain that Hannah had been making secret plans with my parents to force me to buy them a house. They had even consulted a lawyer about claiming partial ownership of my app company, arguing that since I lived at home while initially developing the idea, during college breaks, they were entitled to a share. The lawyer apparently laughed them out of his office, but they were now consulting with someone Hannah found on Facebook who claimed he could help them claim their fair share. Meanwhile, through the family grapevine, I learned that Hannah had been telling everyone she was practically homeless while shopping for $500 throw pillows for her room at our parents' house. She'd also started a GoFundMe for their housing crisis, which raised some eyebrows given Mom's frequent social media posts about their weekend getaways. Tom's parents eventually reached out to me through Linda. They were mortified by the whole situation and wanted me to know they completely disagreed with Hannah and my parents' behavior. Tom's mother shared that Hannah had turned down 5 different starter homes they'd offered to help with because none had a pool or theater room. The final piece of the puzzle came from my old neighbor, Mrs. Winslow. She overheard Hannah and Mom in their backyard, planning their next move. Their strategy? To show up at my office with a local news crew, claiming I was leaving my family destitute while living a luxurious lifestyle. I immediately hired security for my office and sent a cease and desist letter through my lawyer. The letter detailed their history of harassment and manipulation, warning that any attempt to defame me or interfere with my business would result in legal action. Their response? A tearful voicemail from Hannah: "How dare you threaten your own family with lawyers? After everything we've done for you." Everything they've done for me? Like lie about being destitute? Like trying to claim ownership of my company? Like planning to ambush me at work? Tom called me yesterday. He's moving in with his parents and reconsidering the marriage. He apologized for not speaking up sooner and admitted that Hannah's behavior during this whole house situation has made him see her in a different light. I almost feel sorry for them. They've become so entitled that they've lost touch with reality. They're willing to destroy relationships, spread lies, and manipulate everyone around them, all because they think they deserve a luxury house they haven't earned. The irony? If they had just been honest and reasonable from the start, I probably would have helped them with a down payment for a sensible starter home. But now they've shown me exactly who they are, and I believe them. As my therapist says, sometimes people take advantage of your success not because they need help, but because they feel entitled to the fruits of your labor. I'm finally learning that it's okay to say no to entitlement, even when it comes from family. Update 3, looking back at my first post from a year ago, it's amazing how much has changed. Many of you asked for a final update, so here's how everything turned out. Let's start with the professional side. My app company has grown beyond my wildest dreams. We've expanded into enterprise solutions, and last month, Microsoft approached us about a potential collaboration. I've hired a team of brilliant developers, with a particular focus on mentoring young women in tech. I launched a scholarship program for girls interested in computer science, naming it after my high school computer teacher who believed in me when my family didn't. It's already helping 15 students pursue their dreams without family financial barriers. The most unexpected development? Tom filed for divorce from Hannah 6 months ago. He reached out through Linda to thank me. Apparently, the house incident opened his eyes to deeper issues. He's now working at his family's business and seems much happier. Hannah didn't take the divorce well. She tried to claim half of Tom's family business in the settlement, which backfired spectacularly when his family's lawyers got involved. She's now living in a small apartment, telling anyone who'll listen that she's working on a tell-all book about growing up with a toxic millionaire's sister. My parents have been spreading their own versions of events. Mom joined several Mothers of Ungrateful Children Facebook groups, where she shares heavily edited versions of our story. Dad spends his time commenting on my company's social media posts about how I abandoned my real family for corporate success. But here's the thing, their attempts to shame me have had the opposite effect. Their behavior has become so outrageous that they've alienated most of our extended family. Last Christmas, only 3 people attended their annual family gathering, while Linda's holiday party was packed. Speaking of Linda, she's become more of a mother to me than my own ever was. We have weekly dinner dates where we discuss everything from business strategies to personal growth. She recently admitted that she always saw the dysfunction in our family but didn't know how to help. The most significant change, though, has been internal. I started working with a therapist who specializes in family trauma, and she helped me understand the decades of manipulation I'd normalized. We uncovered patterns going back to my childhood, how my achievements were always minimized while Hannah's smallest efforts were celebrated. Remember that designer wardrobe my family used to criticize as a showing off? I donated most of it and developed my own style. Now I wear what makes me feel confident, whether it's a power suit for meetings or comfortable jeans for coding sessions. I've also found love, though not in the way my family always pushed for. I met Alex at a tech conference where I was speaking about women in STEM. He's a software architect who loves debugging code as much as I do. Our idea of a perfect date is competing to solve algorithm problems while eating takeout. The biggest surprise? I'm happier living my selfish life than I ever was trying to please my family. I've built genuine friendships with people who celebrate my successes instead of trying to profit from them. My team at work feels more like family than my biological one ever did. Last week, I found my old Princeton acceptance letter while cleaning out my home office. Instead of feeling bitter, I felt proud, not of the acceptance itself, but of the strength it took to build a successful life despite having my dreams dismissed. The final twist in this story? Hannah recently launched a crowdfunding campaign for her dream home, the same house she wanted me to buy. She's raised $83 so far, mostly from Mom's Facebook friends. Meanwhile, I've used some of my selfishly hoarded millions to establish a tech startup incubator focused on supporting underrepresented founders. My company is launching a new feature next month that helps users recognize and set healthy boundaries, inspired, ironically, by my family's situation. Sometimes the best innovations come from our deepest wounds. To everyone who supported me through this journey, thank you. You helped me see that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's essential. Success means nothing if you have to compromise your self-respect to maintain toxic relationships. For anyone in a similar situation, remember, family isn't just about DNA. It's about who celebrates your success without trying to take credit for it, who supports your boundaries instead of trying to break them, and who loves you unconditionally, not just when you're useful to them. I'm no longer the dutiful daughter trying to buy love with money. I'm just Charlotte, CEO, mentor, friend, and surprisingly happy, disowned daughter. And you know what? That's more than enough. Linda's birthday party is next week. This time, we're celebrating at her favorite restaurant, surrounded by people who understand that love doesn't come with a price tag.